Why does it say his name shall be called in Christian Bibles? Why does the New International Version even remove the word name, even though it says Vayikra Shemai? It literally takes out the name. It just says he will be called. So there is such a promiscuous rendition of these texts in Christian Bibles that it blows the mind away.
All right, Central, you are live on the air. Go ahead with your question.
Hey, how you doing, Rabbi? My name is Central. I would like to say that I am a Muslim, and the reason I'm calling today is essentially for two questions. The first one is very simple. I already know the answer to. Second one is the more important one. First question being, when I debate with Trinitarian Christians and I quote Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, and I try to explain to them this is about King Hezekiah, it's already a fulfilled prophecy, they would argue back and say, but it's dually prophetic. And then when I respond and say, okay, how did Jesus in the New Testament fulfill it? They say it's a dual prophecy about his second coming. So if you could explain that, the other.
Just stay with me for a second, okay? What I would like you to do is, I would just like you to ask somebody what is the evidence that it's a dual prophecy, okay? I want you to get into the habit of asking the question, what is your evidence that this is a dual prophecy? And just think about this. If any prophecy in Tanakh or any statement in Tanakh could be a dual prophecy, what religion then could be dismissed? Do you understand? That means the idea of a dual prophecy, it's not in the Bible. It's not biblical. So I want you to get into the habit of challenging someone and saying, please show me the evidence as a dual prophecy. After all, Isaiah 9 is all in the past tense. You should also be asking them the question of why do the Christian translations all put it in the future tense? But number two is like, what religion then could you dismiss? I mean, in the Catholic Church could claim dual prophecy, and there should be a pope because of Matthew 16. But continue, please.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, when I read the Old Testament, I read it from a perspective of how would a mainstream Jew read this text. I don't try to impose the Trinitarian view into the text, so I never understood it that way. So I understand that. So my second question is essentially, when the Trinitarian Christians especially try to argue for the angel of the Lord being the second person of the Trinity, and they quote passages such as Genesis 31, where the angel of the Lord is said to be the God of Bethel, I understand that as the angel of the Lord is an agent of God, not God himself. So if you could explain that, and that would be the only questions that I have.
So this is a very strange argument that Christians use, and that is that when the term angel of the Lord appears in the Hebrew Bible, it must be a veiled reference to Jesus. As it turns out, the New Testament says itself that it's not possible. I know this comes as a surprise to you, but just look at the first handful of verses in the book of Hebrews. The book of Hebrews is a systematic argument. Well, it's really called the Epistle to the Hebrews, is a systematic argument against Judaism. And the book of Hebrews wants the reader to understand that Jesus is greater than angels. He's not an angel. He even asks the question, given that he's superior to the angels, for which angel did God ever say, you are my son, today I've ever begotten you? I mean, the book of Hebrews, one of the 27 books of the New Testament, begins by saying, number one, that we don't rely on the prophecies of our ancestors, but rather of the revelation of Jesus, but then says that Jesus is greater than the angels, he's not an angel. So why are we playing this game? An angel, you're right, is a messenger. I mean, why does God even have angels? Why would you have a messenger or I have a messenger? It's because we can't be everywhere at once, right? Why do we need an assistant? Because we just can't do everything. But God is all powerful. He's omnipotent. He's omniscient. He's all knowing. Does he really need a secretary? One of the main roles of an angel is to speak to people who can't speak to God directly, right? That's the main reason why God created angels, is so that people could encounter the divine without actually encountering God directly. That's the whole point of an angel. Or else why are there angels? God does not need a secretary. He doesn't need an assistant. He doesn't need a helper. He doesn't need any of the things that you and I need. So, let alone the book of Exodus tells us that an angel of the Lord cannot forgive sin. Well, we are told in the Christian Bible that Jesus is forgiving sin. In fact, Christians use the argument that Jesus saying to the paralytic, your sin is forgiven, that shows that Jesus was in fact divine. It's just completely mind-blowing. Look, if the Hebrew Bible thought that the Messiah was divine, was God, he would just say Jesus. He would say Yeshua is divine. He wouldn't put an angel of the Lord in there. So what this is a very desperate effort to say that, look, every time it says an angel of the Lord, like in Joshua chapter 5, Joshua encounters an angel of the Lord. That's Jesus. In fact, we see explicitly in the book of Judges, chapter 2, verse 1, that an angel of the Lord comes and speaks as though it's God. Please, I beg all of you, please look it up for yourself. Okay, please look it up for yourself. So Judges chapter 2, verse 1, just read it. The plain text tells us that we're encountering an angel, but when the angel speaks, the angel is a messenger of God. It speaks as though the angel is God, okay? So this is conventional in Tanakh, because that's the core role of an angel, is to communicate with people who can't hear the voice of God, who can't encounter God the way Moses, of blessed memory, did. Number two is, the Christian Bible itself says that Jesus is not an angel. He's above the angels. And the book of Hebrews, this is the first argument of a long series of arguments that stretch over 13 chapters. The very first case that the author of the book of, or the epistle to the Hebrews makes, is that Jesus is not an angel. So why you keep saying that? When a Christian says that there's a dual prophecy, that means we have a prophecy in Isaiah 9. Isaiah 9 and 10 are about Hezekiah. It's about a crisis. The Assyrian Empire is our dateline. The year 722 BCE, just about there. And God delivers Jerusalem through a miracle. The entire Sancher's Assyrian army is destroyed overnight, right? And the nation is just so ecstatic that a child was given to them, a son given to them, that God placed the government on his shoulder, and the mighty God, the everlasting Father, calls him the Prince of Peace. Now, you want to say this is a dual prophecy? Why are you changing the tenses? Ki yeled yulad lanu means, for a child was born to us. Yulad means, the term is not past tense, but it's the perfect tense, which means the action has already been accomplished. Bein nitan lanu, a son was given to us. Okay? It's all in the past tense. Now, the Christian wants to argue this really is talking about a future event, and that's why the American Standard Version has a child shall be given to us. Why are you mistranslating it? Why are you playing with the translation? It says the government shall be placed on the shoulder. His name shall be called. Why does the King James read his name shall be called? Now, I want to teach you one other thing. why are you changing the tenses? So now I want you to listen very carefully. So if you're doing anything, I need you to stop for a moment. Why do Christian translations take all the verbs in these two passages and turn them from the past tense, or what we would call the perfect tense, into the future tense? Now, you're saying that the Christian would argue, well, there's that kind of a flexibility in dual prophecy, but why are you changing the meaning of the word? Why are you playing with it? Why don't you just translate it correctly? And then, if you want to, you're welcome to put your spin on it, but translate it correctly. I'll tell you about, I was up late one night watching YouTube. Sometimes I'm on air doing interviews or I'm writing or whatever it is, and like, I just need to clear my head. And there are these YouTube videos of what happens to people who are smuggling drugs into countries and how they're caught by customs. So it's very spooky. You watch it and they're following this guy who's, and there's something not right about him. He's flying into Heathrow. And whatever it is, there's something about him that's shooting off red flags all over, right? They ask him, would you step over here? He's trying to enter London. He's trying to enter England. So they pull him aside, and he's very, very nervous, very nervous. They say, we'd like to check your bags. Did you pack them? Did anyone give you anything? Do you know the contents? The whole routine. This is not some, you're not doing anything wrong. There's nothing, you're not afraid of anything, but he was really very worried. But what happened was they just were opening up a suitcase, opening every jar he had. As it turns out, there were no drugs there. But they knew there was something not right. They scanned his body to see if he had swallowed drugs. And the story ends that they discovered that he had vials of cocaine that were inserted where a person sits down. Okay? The guy had cocaine hidden where a person sits down. So they discover it there. And they asked the guy, we asked you, did you have any drugs? Why you bring cocaine into the country? And the guy responded that, well, I didn't know that it was against the law. And the fellow who works for customs, if you didn't think it was against the law to bring cocaine into Heathrow, then why did you stick it there? That was a very important question. Of course, there could be no answer. So the question is the following. If Isaiah chapter 9, verse 5 and 6, or 6 and 7, depending if you're reading a Hebrew or Christian Bible, the verbs are changed from the past tense and the future tense. Now, I get it that you are saying you thought cocaine is legal. But why did you stick it there? Meaning, I'm using that as a metaphor. If you feel that there's some elastic way of interpreting text that's so wildly elastic that anything from the past could be a portent for the future, and you're not saying there's some homily, but you're using this as you're applying this as some sort of apologetic, as a defense, then why did you change the tense? So what's happening is that by putting cocaine there, by changing the text to a child was born to a child shall be born, by doing that, you're admitting that you're engaging in illicit behavior. Why are you changing it? Well, the answer is the reason you changed it is because you knew it was immoral and illegal, and you also know that your parishioners can't read the original book in its original language. One other thing I should just mention, I don't think I've ever mentioned on the show, that whole ending of Isaiah 9, where it says his name, Vayikra Shema, his name was called Wonderful Advisor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and so on. That doesn't even exist in the Septuagint. I know this will blow your mind away, but if you go to a Septuagint, and you're going to me, Rabbi, I don't read Greek. You don't need to. There are English translations of the Septuagint. The most famous is called the LXE. You can go online right now, and you'll see that actually it isn't in the Septuagint. Y is not material. So if the Septuagint is more reliable, the Septuagint doesn't even possess that. So what are you doing? What are you talking about? Moreover, if this Son has a name called Everlasting Father, well, that violates the doctrine of the Trinity, because according to the Orthodox doctrine of the Trinity, the Son is not the Father. The Father has a distinct hypostatic entity that is different from the Son, that has its own distinct hypostatic entity. All three together create a hypostatic union. So all of it fails on every level. So I want you to do this. Be very careful about this. If you're engaging in apologetics, which means a defense, the standard of evidence becomes very, very high. You cannot submit that a story that's in the past tense that happened already is a portent something in the future. Now, you're welcome to believe that. You're welcome to, for a pastor who wants to teach that from the pulpit to his congregation as a homily, do what you want, but it's not in the text. So Christians are entitled to homilies, but don't cross the line and say that your interpretation that's not biblical, that's not textual, is a defense of the truthfulness of Christianity. That's completely preposterous. So just always don't be afraid. So show me the evidence. And if they say there can be dual prophecy in the future, why did you change it? The word Vayikra begins with the Vav Hamhapech. I don't want to get into complicated Hebrew grammar. It's in the past tense. Why does it say his name shall be called in Christian Bibles? Why does the New International Version even remove the word name, even though it says Vayikra Shemai? It literally takes out the name. It just says he will be called. So there is such a promiscuous rendition of these texts in Christian Bibles that it blows the mind away. And Christians should repent and renounce their religion and turn to the God of Israel. And wassalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for your thoughtful question. If you enjoyed this program, please like and subscribe.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא עת נעשה בחפצו כל